The sun had barely kissed the horizon when the fishermen of Kwale village set out to sea. The waves whispered secrets only the most experienced ears could understand. Among the crew were young and old fishermen, bound by a shared purpose to provide for their families. Junaid, a young but determined fisherman, sat at the edge of the boat, gripping his father's old fishing net. He had been fishing since he was a boy, but this trip felt different. The night before, he had dreamed of the ocean speaking to him, warning him of a trial ahead. He shook off the unease and focused on the task. They reached their first fishing spot, a place known for its bountiful catches. Baba Jallo, the village's most respected fisherman, cast his net first, a tradition among them. One by one, the others followed, their nets sinking into the dark waters. Minutes passed, then an hour, then another. Not a single fish was caught. The men exchanged uneasy glances. This had never happened before. They moved further out, trying different spots, casting their nets with renewed effort. Yet the sea remained silent. Junaid felt his chest tighten. "Maybe we are in the wrong place," he suggested. Baba Jallo shook his head. "The sea knows when to give and when to withhold. We must be patient." But patience turned to frustration as the sun began to set. When they finally decided to return home, their nets remained empty, their spirits weighed down. As they neared the shore, the villagers ran to meet them, eager for fresh fish for the evening meal. But when they saw the empty nets, disappointment spread across their faces. The fishermen sat in silence that night, their hearts heavy with failure. Yet, amidst the gloom, Baba Jallo's voice rang out. "We return tomorrow," he declared, "and this time we will not come back empty-handed." The second morning was different. The air was tense with determination. The fishermen gathered again, each man holding his net as if it were his only lifeline. Junaid hesitated. Something inside him whispered, a feeling he couldn't explain. The dream from the night before returned to his mind. The ocean had spoken to him. But what did it mean? As they paddled out to sea, the journey felt eerily long. The wind was gentle, the waves calm, too calm. It was as if the sea was watching them. Baba Jallo looked at Junaid. "You are troubled, my son." Junaid hesitated before speaking. "I had a dream," he admitted. "The ocean was trying to tell me something." The older man studied him carefully. "Dreams are not always meaningless. What did it say?" Junaid took a deep breath. "That we are being tested, that the sea wants to see how much we truly desire its gifts." Baba Jallo nodded, deep in thought. "Then we must prove ourselves worthy." The fishermen rowed further than before, to a part of the sea they had never explored. It was a risk, but one they were willing to take. As they reached a mysterious stretch of water, something changed. The sea grew restless. The waves began to rise and fall unpredictably. It was as if something lay beneath, waiting. Then, a tug. Junaid's net jerked violently. His heart pounded. "I've caught something," he cried. The other men quickly threw their nets, and one by one they began to feel the pull. The excitement was electric. The struggle was real. Whatever was beneath them was strong, wild, and unpredictable. But they were fishermen. They had learned to battle the sea. As they pulled with all their might, a giant fish broke the surface, its silver scales glistening in the fading sunlight. It was unlike any they had ever seen. Large, beautiful, and powerful. But the surprises weren't over. From the depths, a strange dark shape moved. Junaid's heart stopped. Something was coming, and it was big. The fisherman's excitement quickly turned to fear as the dark shape beneath the surface grew larger. The water around them churned violently, sending ripples through the sea. Junaid tightened his grip on the net, his heart pounding in his chest. The massive fish he had caught twisted and thrashed, but it was no longer his biggest concern. "Something is coming," one of the fishermen shouted. Baba Jallo narrowed his eyes, scanning the depths. He had spent decades on the sea. But even he had never seen anything like this. The shape was moving fast, too fast for an ordinary fish. "Pull the nets," he commanded. The fishermen obeyed, heaving with all their strength. The large fish struggled, but was eventually hauled into the boat. It flopped violently, nearly knocking Junaid over. The others quickly secured it with ropes, but their attention remained on the dark figure in the water. Then, without warning, the sea erupted. A monstrous creature burst from the depths, its body sleek and powerful, its dark eyes fixed on the fishermen. It was no ordinary fish, it was a giant stingray, unlike any they had ever seen. Its body stretched nearly the length of their boat, and its tail, lined with venomous barbs, whipped through the air. The men gasped in horror. They had heard stories of such creatures, but none had ever encountered one. "Steady the boat!" Baba Jallo roared. The fishermen scrambled to balance themselves as the stingray circled, its tail slicing through the water like a blade. The creature wasn't just passing through, it was watching them. Junaid felt a chill run down his spine. "Why is it circling us?" he asked. Baba Jallo's expression was grim. "We have entered its territory." The younger fishermen exchanged nervous glances. "What do we do?" "Stay calm," Baba Jallo instructed. "Do not provoke it." But the stingray had other plans. With a powerful flick of its tail, it surged toward the boat. The impact sent a violent wave crashing over the deck, drenching the men. Junaid lost his footing and stumbled backward, barely catching himself before he fell overboard. The fishermen grabbed their oars, trying to steer the boat away, but the stingray was relentless. It darted beneath them, then emerged again, striking the side of the vessel with its massive wings. "It's testing us," Junaid realized. "It wants to see if we're a threat." Baba Jallo nodded. "Then we must show it respect." Taking a deep breath, the old fisherman raised his hand slowly, a gesture of peace. The others followed his lead, staying as still as possible. For a tense moment, the stingray hovered just beneath the surface, watching them. Then, to their astonishment, it slowly began to retreat. Junaid exhaled in relief. "It's leaving." But before they could celebrate, another unexpected sight caught their attention. From the distance, a school of fish, hundreds of them, began swimming toward their boat. It was as if the sea itself had decided to reward them for their patience and bravery. The fishermen wasted no time. They cast their nets, and within moments, the empty boat that had once carried disappointment was now overflowing with fish of all kinds: snapper, mackerel, barracuda. The men cheered, their voices echoing over the water. As they worked, Junaid looked back at the retreating stingray. He couldn't shake the feeling that it had been more than just an animal encounter. Baba Jallo placed a hand on his shoulder. "The sea tests those it deems worthy," he said. "Today, we have proven ourselves." The young fisherman nodded, his heart swelling with pride. This was more than just a successful fishing trip. It was a lesson, one he would never forget. With their nets full and their spirits high, the fishermen turned their boat toward home, ready to share their story with the village. But none of them could have predicted what awaited them on shore. Something, or someone, was waiting for their return. The fishermen rowed back to shore, their boats now heavy with the bounty of the sea. The golden glow of the setting sun reflected off the waves, casting long shadows on the water. The men, exhausted but victorious, laughed and cheered. After the crushing disappointment of the first day, they had been rewarded beyond their wildest expectations. But as they approached the shore, something was wrong. The beach, which was usually filled with eager villagers waiting to welcome them home, was eerily quiet. A small group of elders stood in the distance, their faces lined with concern. Even the children, who would usually run into the water to greet them, stood back, whispering among themselves. Junaid furrowed his brows. "Why does it feel like we're sailing into trouble?" Baba Jallo's expression darkened. He could sense it too. Something was off. As soon as their boats touched the shore, the head of the village, Elder Kofi, stepped forward. His eyes, usually warm and kind, were filled with unease. "You have returned," he said slowly. Baba Jello stepped forward. "And with a great blessing from the sea," he said, motioning toward the overflowing boats. "What troubles you, Elder?" Elder Kofi hesitated before speaking. "Not long after you left this morning, a stranger arrived in the village." The fishermen exchanged glances. Their village was small, and outsiders rarely came without reason. "What did he want?" Junaid asked. Elder Kofi's lips pressed into a thin line. "He asked about you, about the fishing trip." A chill ran down Junaid's spine. "Who was he?" "No one knows," Elder Kofi admitted, "but there was something strange about him. He carried a staff carved with sea symbols, and his eyes, they were not the eyes of an ordinary man." Baba Jallo's expression grew serious. "Where is he now?" The elder shook his head. "He left as mysteriously as he came, but before he vanished, he left us with a warning." The air around them felt heavier, as if the very sea was listening. "What did he say?" one of the younger fishermen asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elder Kofi took a deep breath. He said, "The sea has tested them. It has given them a gift, but all gifts come with a price." A tense silence fell over the group. Junaid's mind raced. The encounter with the giant stingray, the unusual number of fish, the way the ocean had seemed to watch them. Was it all connected? Baba Jallo's voice was steady. "Did he say what the price would be?" Elder Kofi shook his head, only that they would know when the time came. The celebration that should have followed their victorious return was now laced with uncertainty. The villagers still rejoiced at the catch, but whispers of the stranger's warning spread quickly. Junaid couldn't shake the unease growing in his chest. "What if this wasn't just an ordinary fishing trip?" he murmured to Baba Jallo later that evening. "What if the sea really did test us?" Baba Jallo's gaze was distant. "Then we must be prepared for whatever comes next." That night, as the village feasted, a strong wind blew from the ocean, carrying with it a whisper, one only Junaid could hear. The debt must be paid. And just like that, the sea, which had given them so much, now filled him with fear. The night in Kwale village was restless. The wind howled through the trees, and the waves crashed against the shore with an unusual intensity, as if the sea itself was whispering an omen. Junaid lay awake in his hut, staring at the thatched roof above him. The stranger's warning echoed in his mind. The sea has tested them. It has given them a gift. But all gifts come with a price. What did it mean? Had they taken more than they were meant to? Was the ocean preparing to take something back? He finally gave up on sleep and stepped outside. The village was silent except for the rhythmic sounds of the waves. He walked toward the shore, drawn by a strange force. As he neared the water's edge, he saw a lone figure standing there, gazing out at the sea. It was Baba Jallo. "You feel it too," the old man said without turning. Junaid nodded. "Something is coming." Baba Jallo sighed. The sea is never truly generous. It only lends, never gives. And now it has come to collect. Before Junaid could respond, a deep rumbling filled the air. The ocean began to glow. A faint, eerie blue light pulsated beneath the waves. The fishermen had seen bioluminescent waters before, but this was different. The glow was not from tiny sea creatures. It was something else. Then, the water began to rise. Not in the way of a normal tide, but as if something enormous was pushing up from below. Junaid's breath caught in his throat as a massive shadow emerged from the depths. The silhouette was hauntingly familiar. The stingray, but it was bigger than before. Much bigger. The creature rose until its entire body was visible above the water, its dark eyes locked onto Junaid and Baba Jallo. It no longer looked like a simple sea creature. It looked ancient, otherworldly, as if it had existed since the beginning of time itself. Around them, the village began to stir. People emerged from their huts, gasping in shock as they saw the monstrous figure looming over the ocean. Some clutched charms, whispering prayers to the spirits of the sea. Then, a voice, deep, resonant, and not entirely human, filled the air. The debt must be paid. The villagers froze. The voice had come from the stingray. Junaid felt his knees weaken. What? What do you want? The stingray's eyes seemed to pierce through him. You took from the sea more than was meant for you. The balance must be restored. Junaid's heart pounded. They had caught more fish than ever before. Was that their crime? Had they taken too much? Baba Jalo stepped forward, his voice steady. We did not steal from the sea. We only took what was given. The stingray's massive wings rippled. The sea does not give freely. It only lends. You must return what was taken. Junaid clenched his fists. How? The fish are gone. They have been eaten, shared among our people. There was silence. Then the stingray's voice came again. Then something of equal value must be given in return. A cold realization settled over them. The sea was asking for something else. A sacrifice. The villagers murmured in fear. Some backed away, unwilling to hear more. Others looked to Baba Jalo, their leader, for guidance. Junaid swallowed hard. What? What do you want? The stingray's eyes settled on him. You. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Junaid's blood turned to ice. Me? You were the first to take, the first to challenge the waters, the first to be tested. The balance must be restored. Baba Jalo stepped forward. No, if a sacrifice must be made, take me instead. The stingray's gaze did not shift. The debt is his. Junaid felt the weight of every eye in the village on him. His mother clutched her chest. The children, the elders, the men who had gone fishing with him, none of them spoke. The air was thick with sorrow. He had always been taught to respect the sea, to take only what was needed, to listen to its whispers, to honor its power. But had he been blind to the lesson the ocean was trying to teach? He took a deep breath, stepping forward. If this is the price, he said, then I will pay it. A tear slipped down his mother's face. Baba Jalo clenched his fists but said nothing. He knew that arguing with the sea was pointless. Junaid walked toward the water, feeling the cold waves lap at his feet. The stingray waited, unmoving. Then, something unexpected happened. The moment Junaid stepped fully into the water, the ocean calmed. The glowing light faded. The stingray lowered itself, its eyes watching him closely. And then, the voice returned, softer this time. The sea has seen your heart. Junaid held his breath. The debt is paid. Before he could react, the stingray turned and disappeared into the depths. The water stilled. The eerie glow was gone. And just like that, the ocean was silent once more. Junaid stood in the shallow waves, his heart hammering. He was alive. Behind him, the village erupted into cheers. His mother collapsed with relief. Baba Jalo closed his eyes and whispered a prayer of gratitude. Junaid turned back to the ocean. He didn't understand why the sea had spared him, but he knew one thing for certain. The sea did not give. It only lent. And those who took from it had to be ready to give something back. That night, the village celebrated, but Junaid never forgot the warning. From that day forward, he made sure that every fisherman took only what was needed, never more, never less. And whenever he looked at the sea, he knew it was watching, waiting, testing, ready to collect its due.